Great. Good evening, everyone. And it is exactly 7 in the evening, South African time. Thank you so much for joining. It is another episode of Authentic Dialogues with Tato. And we are on episode 7. Today we're talking about a topic that I think a lot of women will relate with specifically, and it's around authenticity in motherhood. How you embracing your authenticity in motherhood. I think we all can agree with that, whether you're a mother or not, that there are so many complexities around that. We've seen it with our mothers, with our aunts, with ourselves, if you're a mother. So we know that motherhood, as much as it's such a rewarding job, it can be daunting, and as much as it's fulfilling as well. So this evening, to help us and talk more about this discussion, is our guest, our very special guest. I told you that all my guests are very special, so I chose them very carefully. So this evening we're joined by Andy Cohen, and so Andy, thank you so much for joining us this evening and for tackling this very topic. I know it's something that's very close to your heart. So thank you for joining us this evening and welcome.
Oh, thank you. So it's so nice to see you again, and yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It's so nice to chat, and I'm looking forward to it.
Great stuff. So just a bit of context and introduction to Andy. So I personally met Andy only last year. We were just talking about that it's almost a year that we met, and we met when we both did our TEDx talk, or preparing and then doing the talk. So I remember being very curious and interested in the topic that she was talking about, that she was going to be presenting. So when I did this series, her name definitely popped, because as I said, I carefully choose these women, and they have to relate to authenticity. So she is a TEDx speaker as a result, and then she's an psychoanalyst in training, with a background in art and counseling. I think that's a phenomenal combination, by the way. So Andy is deeply interested in personal development, something that we both share, the love for personal development, and works in private practice with a wide range of individuals and groups in and around Johannesburg and South Africa. So that's her background. She's obviously a mother, and her TED talk was really about a mom can't always act like a grown-up. This is how, and really, I think that's a very interesting topic. Even the way you structured it. Why the topic, Andy? What made you go for that topic?
Oh, so I think that nobody talks about what happens inside us as mothers. I feel like, you go to bed one night and you are a woman, and you're pregnant, and you wake up and you're a mother, and nobody talks about that transition, and nobody talks about how you change in so many ways when you become a parent. And I feel like there's almost like an embargo on talking about your feelings when you're pregnant and when you have children. There's kind of like a culture that sort of protects this idea. And I mean, even if I think about back to when I was initially pregnant, I went to antenatal classes and that sort of thing, but it was all very much like based in concrete reality, how to change nappies and birth plans and what to expect. But nobody would talk about the feelings, the feelings. You were supposed to be in this beautiful bubble and, I don't know, meditate on it. And, but the truth is that when you have children, parts of you are activated that were kind of sleeping inside. And that's what I wanted to talk about. I have been through psychoanalysis myself. And through that process, I discovered a lot of things about myself. And I just wanted to share. I wanted to share it with other mothers, and hopefully that we could get talking about this, that it's not, feelings are not a dirty word, like they are a necessary part of our experiences, and that it's very important to understand that as a parent, because you can't expect your children to if you don't know how to. So, it was really just inspired by my own journey as a mother, and I'm also training to become a psychoanalyst. So, it's in the work I do, it's in my bones. And I feel like I'd really gone through something profound, and I felt like it was an idea worth sharing with people.
Wow, I love that. But a question that comes to mind, Andy, is, a lot of people say you will not really know how it feels until you experience it, right? So when you say you're not told how you would feel, isn't it something that you really have to experience yourself? Do you really think it's something that you can teach somebody or share with somebody?
You mean in what way? Like that you can teach them what?
So when you say that when you're expecting a child and you're pregnant and you're going through that, and you mentioned that you went to prenatal classes, it's just changing nappies and stuff, but nobody really tells you what goes inside of you.
Yeah.
So my question is, isn't it something that one would have to discover and experience themselves?
Yes.
Unlike telling you that, Andy, this is what will actually happen for you. So one would argue that, but you have to experience that yourself.
Yes. Okay, so that's a good question, because the world that I come from, the psychoanalytic world, it's all about experiencing that process, being given it yourself, having someone listen to you and think through your experience with you, and then you know how to do it. It's like an experiential process. I don't know, maybe it's worth me explaining what psychoanalysis is.
Yes,
and
please.
what
I was actually going to ask that. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm preempting your questions, but I feel like it would be hard for people to understand without that. I don't know if anyone understands, not everyone knows what psychoanalysis is, but it's a type of therapy where you lie on the couch. I'm sure you've seen the Freud cartoon.
Yeah.
It's kind of been popularized, like with a guy lying on the couch with the psychoanalyst behind them. And so it's a kind of a therapy where you don't have eye contact. And this is meant to sort of free up the tension a little bit so that you can let your mind wander. And in psychoanalysis specifically, you are in therapy 4 to 5 days a week, ongoing, for as long as it takes. It's a very, very long process, and it's a long and a gentle process. And where it differs enormously from other forms of therapy, it's that it's non-directive. So your analyst never tells you what to think about or talk about. It's about letting your mind wander, and then the analyst follows that train of thought and sees what themes are coming up and what the unconscious is talking. So we work with the unconscious states that we all have. The mind, Freud described the mind as being an iceberg. Like where you've got the iceberg and just a tiny tip that points out, that's your conscious mind. That's the stuff that we know and can call like this. But there's like 7/8 underwater. And that is our unconscious mind. And the unconscious is governing everything. Please believe me, it is the chassis to your vehicle. It is governing everything, all the directions, all your decisions, all your relationships, which is kind of a scary thing, right? Because it means that you're not in control in a way that you think you're in control. And this unconscious experience is all laid down when you were a baby and a toddler. And then it kind of gets embedded into you. And some of those experiences were too difficult to think about, so they get repressed so that you don't have to think about it anymore. But it doesn't go away. It's like an energy source. And so the more, and as you grow, and as you get older, those things are going to be activated by different life stages. Those memories, those feelings will be triggered. And this leads to a huge amount of conflict between people. You think that you're fighting about, that your husband didn't pick up his clothes off the floor. You think you're fighting about that, but you're not fighting about that. You're fighting about the last time somebody didn't anticipate your needs or left you with a big mess of stuff and feelings to deal with, So everything's encoded. So in a psychoanalytic process, psychoanalysis being, I guess, the original form of it, but any psychodynamic psychotherapy will have this kind of approach, just the process will be tweaked in certain ways, is always about trying to hear that unconscious voice. So that's the process. And then I guess the way it locks into motherhood is that you have these layers to yourself that are hidden underneath the bottom where the iceberg is. And when you have a baby and when you have children, they activate those old parts of yourself, and it can lead to a lot of conflict in your family if you don't know what's really going on.
Thank you for the explanation, by the way. That's really amazing. It actually takes me back to my psychology background. By the way, I have a psychology background, and exactly the stuff that you're explaining is what got me attracted in psychology in the first place, is that you would wonder, why is this person angry for such a small thing? It's just a small thing. But then when you trace it back, it's a lot of underlying issues that triggered that incident. Just triggered a whole lot of issues that are undealt with. So I assume that then the psychoanalysis process is a process that helps you to go and remember all of this, but then to heal the process and to bring to a point of realization and an awareness, so that you can understand what your trigger points is to heal, and then to start, dealing with things more consciously. As I said, the 70% that's underneath the water is the stuff that drive our decisions, our behaviors, our everyday things, but we're not aware of them. They're sitting in our conscious brains. So is to bring that into that 10% of the iceberg, so that we can be more deliberate in our actions. Am I making sense? Am I right in that?
Perfect. Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Okay. So now, coming back to authenticity and motherhood, how would you think that authenticity, why is it important, as particularly in a role as a mother, in your role as a mother?
So I think, when you first posed this question to me offline, I spent quite a lot of time thinking about it, because I think the word authenticity in the context of motherhood is really tricky. What does it mean to be an authentic mother? Like, that feels like a hot topic,
Yeah.
because I guess, like, authenticity as an idea brings to mind, something that's genuine, something that's true, something that's reliable, and isn't a mother just always doing her best to be all those things, right?
Yeah.
I think where authenticity would fit in for me is that if we're trying to deal with this idea of what's authentic and what's true, and we're only thinking with the top of the iceberg, then we're not authentic, because there's so much that we don't know about, right? So what's the authentic? Where is the authentic located? And because these ideas are sort of buried underneath, you're almost not being true to yourself, because you spend a lot of time avoiding ideas, feelings, needs, for good reason. It's not for nothing. It's not a dirty word. Like, we can be inauthentic because we're doing the best we can and we're trying to protect ourselves from very hard feelings. Yes. But in some way, I guess, we're not being truthful to ourselves about how we really feel. And when you don't, I suppose the consequence of that kind of, let's call it an authenticity, but I'm using it in a very careful way. When we're not authentic and really authentically understanding what we're going through and giving ourselves that break to understand something, the consequence is that it causes repetitions in our lives. So those needs that are buried underneath, right? So like deep, like needs of being needed, being wanted, having your needs met, like this, all of that stuff that babies would feel. If they're not met, and please believe me, they're not always meant to be met. So we can talk about that too, but they're needs that you still want, you still want everything, right? Like you want to have a holiday for 3 months and it must be in Disney World, like
wow.
You want it, but
how I would love that.
The same way the need is coming from a baby who wants mom there every second, the moment they open their eyes, mom must be available. But like mom works, or mom's in the bathroom, or mom didn't hear the first time. So the need wasn't met, and then that's catastrophic for a baby. So when these needs are not met, something happens inside, and the feeling goes somewhere. And if it hasn't been dealt with as an adult, the need still wants to come out. It exists in you like it was yesterday. And so it wants to come out. It's constantly trying to expel that energy of that need. If the need wants to be met, wants to be met, wants to be met. And then what it does is it will repeat in an unconscious way in all your interactions. And it often comes out in the form of difficult feelings and anxieties and conflict with your loved ones, the people that matter most to you. It comes out enormously in corporates. You know, corporate family, right? Like corporates are you dad and the mom, and you've got your siblings around you,
and you've got cousins and aunts and everyone.
And that's what you're replaying. Actually, we can pretend that it's all suits and ties, but it's not. There's something about the culture of the environment that you're in that is speaking to a very old part of you that needs something. The needs are not always good for you. They often have a child's perspective because they were formed when you were a child, and then they got stuck somewhere before they had a chance to mature and understand something. So I suppose, sorry, I'm rambling a bit, but getting back to the original question of what happens when these needs go unmet. They start to play out in your lives, and they'll repeat. You know, the same fight you have with every partner, the same frustration you have with every boss, the same disappointment you have in every friendship, the feeling you get when someone doesn't call you back, what goes through your mind. It's those sorts of narratives, those dialogues that you have inside. And all that's actually happening there is you haven't had an opportunity to understand that need in an authentic way. It hasn't been heard and metabolized with you. And so, and so what happens is then when you are having a conversation with your kids, who are the closest part of you that there ever will be in this world, whether they came out of your body or not, you are raising them. It's like your needs are now outside your body, and they're asking from you, and you want them back.
Wow.
Yeah. And so as a mother, it is so important to understand, to authentically get to know what is happening inside you when you're around your children, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that you can understand and metabolize something, and it will free up space between you and your kids. And that is where the authenticity really happens, because it allows your kids to live their lives and you to have your feelings and live your life, and the relationship gets freed up, and that's authentic.
You know, it sounds all practical, Andy, and like it's doable, but we all know that it's very challenging, right? But something came to my mind as you talked, just your last piece. Would you say this dissonance and this chaos, I would call it the chaotic part, where you haven't realized your needs and now they're coming via your children and you're not sure how to handle it? Is that part of the things, and I know I'm off tracking a little bit, but is it part of the contributor to postpartum depression? Because you are in this dilemma, and a lot of things are happening and you're not sure what's happening, but you're also feeling like what I'm hearing you say is your child is like a mirror, right? You're literally seeing yourself and those behaviors and those needs, but you're not sure how to handle that.
Yes. So there's a brilliant paper. I think the analyst's name is, she's a child psychotherapist and an analyst. Her name, I think, is Joan Raphael Leff, if I'm not mistaken. And she writes this beautiful paper called Ghosts in the Nursery, where mothers are haunted when their babies are born. And it causes really, like the baby's being born, your baby, which is supposed to be this beautiful experience, actually something gets woken up, like you've got a sleeping baby in you that now got woken up. And that baby was sleeping peacefully, but it has all its own worries and very dark and hard stuff that was never metabolized for whatever reasons. There are lots of reasons. And so your feelings haunt the nursery when you're around your baby, and then it becomes very hard to be around your baby. Because your baby is like a constant reminder of, I guess, an unmet needs that you had. And that absolutely, I mean, postnatal depression is, it's a very, very hard experience, and it's just feelings, right? They're feelings that don't want to be known about, because they just feel absolutely overwhelming. And the baby has brought that, which is very confusing for a mother. It's an unbelievably confusing thing. But it's so normal in a way, because your baby is part of you. And why can't your baby remind you of yourself? Like, of course it's going to. It's so ordinary. It's so ordinary. But nobody says that. Nobody talks about how activating our babies are for us.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing, because I mean, in the very first episode, and I think even continuously, we spoke about self-awareness. It was from a coaching perspective, though. Self-awareness is something that's such a beautiful gift for just anyone to progress or to deal with some issues, stuff that may be hindering you from progressing and stuff. I see a similar thing here, right? That if you're not aware of those unmet needs, of those undealt emotions and hurts and whatever that you've suppressed, whether deliberately or not, I think then it has the potential of creating a very hostile and toxic situation here. The opposite is also quite true. If you're aware and you're doing the job of being deliberate in continuing the work of raising that self-awareness, then the child can bring actually that healing that's not there. It could be a path, a journey that you embark on that actually brings that healing to close those those open wounds and to heal those stuff. I think because that sleeping baby, because they're waking that sleeping baby, it could be a great opportunity to now deal with those things, because you're forced to face them head on. I don't know, that's just my sense, that the gift that comes with self-awareness.
I think that's so true. I think that when you have a baby and children, when you raise, it's not just about babies, because you're raising your children, and every stage of their lives you're going to be reminded of a stage of yours, like in an embodied way, like not in an intellectual way. And I think it's like the most beautiful opportunity to understand something about yourself, because you wouldn't have had any other way to do that. And I do think, and it might be a generalization, but it's sort of, I've got this inkling that one of the reasons why we want to have children is to externalize something from inside us.
Yeah.
It's like concretized as a human, and of course the humans come with thousands of wonderful things on a daily basis. But I think if you think about what it is, you are birthing something, you're taking something inside where there's no other way of getting it, and putting it on the outside so you can look at something, and you can, and I think that's something from inside that needs to be known about.
I love that. That's a beautiful way of putting it. I think it's absolutely beautiful. And is being authentic something that you personally that would like to teach and instill in your child?
Yeah, I mean,
or your children?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess
And why is it so important? Sorry, and why is it so important for you to do so?
I mean, I think when I initially went into psychoanalysis, it was to do that. It was I could feel that there was difficult feelings between me and my at the time, I had one child at the time, and it felt like our relationship was difficult. She was very little, and it was not her fault. It was something in me that I found hard to understand, and it didn't make sense to me. There was something that just didn't make sense. And I went into, I seeked out that type of process because I felt like it would help me get to the heart of something. I think having a child maybe motivated me to really take the deep plunge, actually, because there was so much at stake. It's one thing like risking your own mental health, just I'll see how it goes, I'll just see how I am, and then I'll deal with it, because the consequence is yourself. But I think when you've got a child to raise, and a family to give back to, for me, the demand, the trade-off was too great. It was too great a risk. And so I think she motivated me to go into that process, but really it was for me. And now what that does is that gives her a platform to just live her own life and not to live out my undone stuff.
Mm. Speaking of living her own life, there's a lot of expectations that come with being a mother from society, from family. You need to do it this way. You need to do so many things, and so many people know a lot. How does mothering your own way, sort of, if I can call it that, how was that like for you to make a decision to say, you know what, this is I want to be authentic in this journey because I want that's what I want to teach my children. How was that decision for you, and deciding that I'm going to mother my own way, even if it's still taking some advice or one or two from other people, but ultimately it's going to be your way of how you want to raise your children?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think there's a cookie cutter. I wish there were. If there is one, please give it to me, because I think there's no one way to parent. I really don't. But I think for me, I've been through many different therapeutic journeys. Psychoanalysis I found like in the last 10 years, but before that I tried many other types. This is the one that made me feel like I was heard the most. And it sort of gave me a bit of a blueprint, because there is a kind of a mirroring process that happens, and if you are heard by someone in the right way, it shows you how to do it for someone else. And the someone else is my children. I can hear things that I never would have been able to hear with them before. And because it's not bouncing off my stuff, I can see it's a clear view. So yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think there is no one way to mother, and that's where the authenticity comes in again. I think it's about discovering who you are as a person, what you need, what feels right and sits right in an authentic way,
Yeah.
and then trusting that you're doing the best you can, because we're all just doing that.
Yeah.
Unconscious needs will, firstly, not all the needs will ever be met, and unconscious is there for a reason. We'll never know our full unconscious. I could be in analysis for the next 30 years and still not know it. It is an elusive thing on purpose. It's by design. You can know, but you can know some things, and that can, I guess, make you feel free enough to just parent with less of a burden. It doesn't become such hard work,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly where I was getting to, because if you don't have that embracing of your authenticity, which comes with a lot of self-awareness, acceptance, and all of those things, then it will be hard to mother in an authentic way, to even instill that in your children, because then you're always going to be swayed by everyone else and all the noise around you, which is always there, right? Now with the influence of social media, it's even increased the ridiculousness of expectations of how a mother should be, what you need to teach your children, how you need to mother your children. So I suppose that's what I wanted to say. If you are stable and you are comfortable in your own being and in your authenticity, then it's easy, to mother your own way. That's exactly what I was saying. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So speaking of embracing, how do you teach your children to embrace their authenticity and their individualism? Because at the end of the, and I know that a lot of mothers, like you were saying, you're raising something here, and then they come out, and then there's a way that you would like them to turn out. You're teaching them, there's values that you are teaching them, but at the end of the day, these are individuals, right? They've got their own thinking and stuff. How do you balance the two? Well, you're teaching them, to be authentic, and you've got your own way, but then you're allowing them to be the individuals that they are.
Yeah. Look, I'm a huge, it's no secret, I'm a huge advocate for therapy. Whatever that looks like. I think that you need help to do that, because our stuff is so intertwined. Parents and children, it's like, there's an amazing psychoanalyst, he's not alive anymore, Donald Winnicott, and he talked about how there's no baby without a mother. We like one thing. Your minds are connected, your beings are connected. And I think the the best way for me, in my experience and what I've seen with my patients and in a clinical settings and my colleagues and the, you know, I guess the whole analytic field, is you need help. You can't hear unconscious voices yourself. It is a script that you're not allowed to know. So for me, it's always about, who are you talking to? Who are you bouncing this stuff off with? Who are you talking to, and so that your need is heard, not met. It's not always met, but who is hearing that need, helping you metabolize what you are and aren't getting. What is yours that you can hold, that you can keep, and what isn't. And then you can separate you and your child. But you have to separate your thoughts and feelings from each other. And in my experience, the only real way to do that is by having some kind of psychodynamic therapy where they can listen in a particular way, because it's a very particular kind of listening. And psychoanalysts and psychoanalytic psychotherapists are trained to listen, I guess, kind of between the lines. And so for me, I mean, I joke, like I went to a baby shower like a year ago, and the mom, you know, everyone was bringing the gifts, you know, like everyone was bringing all the presents and whatever. And like, people thought I was mad. I gave the number of a therapist to her because I was like, you need this, you know, this is my gift to you. Go and find someone who can listen to you, because this is going to be tough. Beautiful. It's like a beautiful burden. It's going to be beautiful, but it's going to be tough, and you need to be talking about it with someone in a closed space where no one can hear you except for that person who's listening.
So as an advocate for therapy myself, I'm just gonna ask as if I don't know, and I'm not a therapy. I'm not an advocate. What I'm hearing you say is in every situation, because a lot of, so let me take it a step back. A lot of the people go for therapy when there's a problem, right? There's a problem in their lives, in their marriage, at work, with progress, anything. That's when they seek therapy. What I'm hearing you say is to navigate life in general, you need therapy, right? And sometimes it helps you even before you get to the problem. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah. I mean, let's put it this way. Like, I had a friend of mine who's she's actually a therapist, but she's also a yoga. She like does yoga. She's an instructor, and she was saying to me that you know, no one bats an eyelid when you say that you practice yoga 6 days a week, and nobody like looks at you like you're crazy if you run 7 days a week and you're doing the comrades or something. You know, that's normal. Absolutely normal to be physically keeping your body fit and healthy and strong. That's totally culturally sane, right?
Yeah.
But to tell someone that you're in therapy, firstly at all, never mind once a week, you know, God forbid 4 times a week, and they think like, what? Well, wow, what's wrong? No, nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. Actually, this is right. Like, how do we not live in our minds as much as we live in our bodies? Why can't you be taking care of your mind?
I love that. Do we not live in our minds as well? I think that is powerful. And I'm laughing and I love what you said about culturally, because it is a huge cultural misunderstanding. I don't even know how to label it, misunderstanding, issue, or whatever. Particularly in the Black community, where mental illness or mental health, even, you know, whether it's the health or the illness, it's not something that is well embraced or spoken about. You know, there's a lot of labels that people are being, you know, if you go for therapy, it must be a secret. People don't say that, you know, there's that and that, because there's a lot of stigma around it, and there's a lot of bad connotation around mental health and therapy. Whether even if it's just pre-counseling, you know, therapy, you know, and it's something that I preach, especially, you know, in relationships and stuff. And people just go for, you know, when people get married and they go to this pastor, and pastor would do that therapy as part of their pastoral duties. For me, it's just a tick box, boom, done, it's done, but it's not proper therapy to really prepare for this journey that you're about to embark on as a couple, because there's a lot of expectations that we know comes with that. So I absolutely agree with you, and I'm laughing not because it's a joke, but because there's a lot that still needs to happen in educating around the space, and taking care of our minds, and that help. I also like how you said earlier that we need help, right? You can't do it on your own. You need that help. But people are so, and you said corporate earlier, especially in corporate as well, saying I need help is something that people are just afraid to say. I don't know if it's because you're gonna think I'm not competent, I'm not enough and stuff, but people are generally scared to say I need help.
Yeah.
In your line of work, in your experience, why do you think that's the case, Andy?
Yeah, it's a big question. So I think there are a couple of things. I think people might not want the answer.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
So I think the resistance is cultural, but I think because then we judge, something's wrong with you but I think also, what happens if you reach out for help and you don't like what you find? And going back to this idea of like a repressed unconscious, like memories and needs and things that were repressed, they were repressed for a reason. You didn't want to know about them. Once upon a time, a long time ago, it was overwhelming and the feeling needed to go somewhere. So it was put under a blanket. And it's a frightening, scary idea. And so I think you don't want to ask for help, maybe because you're not going to like the answer. It may or may not be true. You might be pleasantly surprised. It might actually be a very easy thing to understand, because now you're approaching a child's problem with an adult's mind. So a lot of the time, the worst has already happened, actually. And when you rediscover the thing or the things, because it's more like layers of things. It's not like a big monster under the bed. It's layers. It's veils of things. And as you peel back the veils, some of the veils are a bit harder to metabolize than others. But I think deep inside, you don't really want to know. I mean, I remember when I once went to talk to an analyst, even before I'd started analysis, and he said, why are you here? And I said, because I really want to get to know myself. And he was like, rubbish. No, you don't. Why? Why would you want to know yourself? Like it's like this weird like conundrum, like we want to know, but we don't know. So I think part of it is that deep down, even though culturally I think the culturally is a mirror of the dialogues we're having inside, and we're too scared to go. Like, stuff's scary, I'm joking about it, but it's not. It's hard because we have to face about ourselves the realities, the fact that needs won't always be met, the fact that actually we have thoughts and feelings that are not so PC, and we do have taboo thoughts. Everybody is angry, and everybody has these feelings that they don't want to know about, like they're not pretty.
Your response actually reminds me of an old movie that I actually had a DVD, and I have no idea what happened to it, about the lady who had 18 multiple personalities, and he's talking about multiple personality disorder. And it is exactly that, as a result of just burying stuff that you don't want the answer because you are scared of what to uncover, and it's a coping mechanism, right, that you've used over the years. And so this woman has just developed personality on personality on personality on personality, because she was just hiding. And it started when she was just a 4-year-old, who used to be locked in a cupboard by her mother, and as a result of running away from that truth and that reality, and not knowing what to deal with it, because it brought so many traumatic memories, just developed personality on personalities, and those are the layers that you're talking about. So really, I think this thing of not getting the gift of really uncovering what's beneath that surface, beneath the iceberg, I think it's a very dangerous thing because it can result in it can manifest in so many different ways, including multiple personality disorder, which is a very serious psychiatric issue.
Yeah, so I'm not a psychiatrist. I think the movie you're talking about is Sybil. I'm sure her name was
It's
Sybil.
Sybil. Yes, that's
Yeah.
the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think obviously, that was as a result of severe abuse, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly. But I think in a more ordinary way, in not like a pathology, in a pathological kind of a way. I think we all have parts of ourselves that need to be split off because they're just too hard to think about. And actually, I think the beauty and the magic, if you want to use that word, the magic of therapy is that actually when you are able to think the unthinkable and survive it, that's when you heal.
When you're able to think the unthinkable and survive it. I think that's beautiful. And it's a nice way of almost wrapping up our session this evening because we're almost coming to the end of our session. And I think, we could go on and on about this topic. There's so many connected things. It's such a dynamic topic. But I'm grateful that we got to talk about even things that I didn't think we would talk about as we were preparing for this session. So thank you so much. I just want to provide you an opportunity to say anything else or anything that that came to your mind as we're having this dialogue that you want to share with the people out there, as a psychoanalyst, or anything as a role in mother, as a mother in authenticity.
Well, I mean, what I do want to just mention, if I may, is that I'm starting to run groups for mothers on Zoom, because one of the things that came out from the pandemic is that for the first time, people really are talking about mental health, and mothers have been reaching out to me off the back of my TED talk and wanting to talk to me and talk with other mothers about these difficult feelings that they're having in relation to their kids. And so, if anyone's interested, to please reach out. Because I am having these small exclusive, these small groups of moms are coming together on Zoom in a safe, confidential space where I facilitate weekly conversations and interactions in this group, just as support, like weekly support for moms. So if anyone's interested, to please reach out and we can chat further to see if the groups will be, being in a group would be useful.
Well, thank you. I think that's a fantastic idea. As you said, one of the gifts of the pandemic and lockdown particularly was the realization of or the importance of seeking help, because I think most of us were affected mentally one way or the other, right? And I can only imagine what it must have been like for mothers, where they had to school, mother, still be employed, still be wives and all of that at the same time, in the same space all the time. I can only imagine how mentally exhausting that may have been. So I think it's a wonderful thing. And what could one expect from those sessions, very quickly, Andy?
Well, I guess it would just be, I don't know what we would expect. That's we can expect the unexpected. It would just really be a confidential space where there's a group of 4 to 6 moms who are all struggling with their feelings, and we can just talk about them openly and see what comes up and survive them together, and so that you can step out of your life, think about difficult stuff, free up space so you can step back into it afterwards. And just
I love the freeing up space part. I love it. Well, Andy, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I thoroughly enjoyed our discussion, and I really wish we had more time to discuss it. I think I just want to end this session with a quote by one of the women that I absolutely love her work, Brené Brown. And she says, authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. So this is a quote by Brené Brown. I absolutely follow and do the work of Brené Brown. And I agree. Choice is everything. Whether you want to go for therapy, it's a choice. Whether you want to uncover some of those things, it's a choice. But it's a choice that you make every single day to remain authentic. So from me, thank you so much. And that's the end of episode 7. Once again, Andy, thank you so much for making the time and for sharing your experience, your expertise, and your wisdom with us. Absolutely divine pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.